Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs book special. Yes, as I said on the previous one, who better to bring in for a book special than a boy from Hackney, that renowned place of people that don't really have books or read, or it wasn't when I lived there and grew up there. I think rules are a bit different now. Listen, today bringing you review on a book, an absolutely stunning tome, I think they say in bookie circles. Let me just give myself lucky. Ryan Sessegnon's not lifting this up. He'll be out for a month. Look, this, the Spurs Shirt book, fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I brought that back from the UK to the Canary Islands, and Ryanair charged me about £400 in excess baggage to get that home. So, but it was well worth it. And joining us today, please welcome everybody, the one and only, of course, Mr. Jason, THFC since '76, McGovern. Hello, Jason. How you doing?
Morning, matey. Nice, bright, early start today, hence why Ricky's still in bed. You know, can't be bothered to join us today with the show, but looking forward to this one. I love going through the old history and that. It's and this book, wow, really good. I think, you know, they've revised it, which Daren will talk about to us. But it's well, even if you've got the original, it's worth getting the revised edition. That's for sure.
Absolutely, it is. Talking of Daren, one of the fine chaps behind the book. Welcome, Daren Burney. Daren, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whenever you're listening to this. How you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me on the podcast. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Yes, as you can hear, it's bright and early where we're recording. So when you're listening to this at 11 p.m. walking the dog, it was 8 a.m. somewhere in the world when we was recording. So, Daren, just a quick curveball question to you. I see you're Daren with just one R. Can you ever recall a player's shirt that had actually been spelt incorrectly? The player's name was incorrect.
I don't think now.
There's a curveball for you, Jason.
I think, do you know what? As the program goes on, I'm going to think about this. I got a feeling there was, and I have to remember now. I'm not certain, but it'll now drive me crazy for the next.
See, I know I've got quite a collection of vinyl records, and if you get a misprint or a misspell or something, hugely collectible, hugely. So I'm just wondering, if I'm sure as once this show goes out that there'll be one or two people that come in and go, oh, I had a shirt once and Holston was spelt wrong or something. So just seems little quirks and anomalies that come along. So if you can recall anything, viewers and listeners, do let us know, because we're always keen to hear.
I know within there is a misspell of, but it's not on a player's name. But we'll talk about that later on.
Okay, yep. Good stuff.
The European competition you're referring to. But,
yeah. Jace, so listen, you're lucky enough to see this book as well, and for us fans that have got it, just tell everyone a little bit about it. And if you're into your shirts, it is actually wow, isn't it? It's one of those things, you open it, turn the pages, and you are like, look at that. It is incredible, isn't it?
Well, you're right. I mean, when you talked about excess baggage, look at the thickness of it. First of all, it's got to be a kilo in weight itself. And I think if you're a collector of some of the history books that Tottenham have done, they're all mostly published through Vision Sports Publishing. And Toby isn't with us today, but Toby's team do an amazing job. The quality that they produce, the paper quality, the images that they use in the book, the quality of those images. They did the Glory nights. They did the Lane when we left there. Stevie Perryman's autobiography, if anyone's got that, that's I've never seen an autobiography like Stevie Perryman's for the quality of it. I think the complete history, the double book in the presentation box and thing. I don't know if they did the opus, but they've done some amazing work with Tottenham. So that's what hits you first. And I think a book like this needs the quality anyway that brings those shirts to life. And as I said, if you've got the original book, which I think was probably 5 or 6 years ago now, probably 5 years ago.
5 years.
And was it 5 years? Was it?
Yeah.
I think it was 5 years ago. If it's still worth getting this revised edition because there are the new shirts, but there's also a few new extra features and things like that in there, which I'm sure Daren will expand on. So with legacy numbers and things like that. So it's a lovely piece of work, mate.
Brilliant stuff. Daren, a collaboration of authors come together to make the book. And originally we reviewed this book once before, but we're regathered to bring you to speak about the latest version. Simon Shakeshaft very much involved. So a little bit about Simon Shaky, I think he's affectionately known as, isn't he? And he was one of the main drivers with this.
Yeah, just to sort of give you a bit of background. Shaky, unfortunately, has not been in the best of health lately, so he can't come on the programme. But originally, back in, well, as I said, about 7 years ago, Neville Evans, who has got a most amazing collection of shirts, and myself and Shaky were sort of discussing a project, and you mentioned VSP. We got to a stage we thought, if we're going to do this project, we want to do it, it's an official club publication, and we'll go for the best publishers in their class, and that's how the project started. I mean, Shaky is a walking encyclopedia of shirt knowledge, just not only Spurs, but it's incredible, his knowledge across probably every club, and it brought together the collections at the time, the main collections from myself and Neville. We published the first edition, which we were quite proud of. But of course, 5 years in football and the various kits. I mean, you've got the three sort of kits, home, away, and the third strip, and you've got so many variations nowadays. If you get through to the cup finals, you've got the AIA charity shirts, you've got the Poppy shirts. In fact, 2 Poppy shirts now. And it's amazing, in that 5 years, it added on so many pages to the new book. We also, of course, had Harry Kane sort of break both the Spurs and the England records. So we wanted to do great features on those. And and of course, since the book, we had the Champions League final. So it's quite some iconic shirts in there.
Good stuff. Brilliant.
And remind us how many shirts are actually featured in the book, because I mean, for those that don't know, each page you'll get the shirt, but you get a match worn shirt, an image of a match worn shirt, which are fantastic. So how many player shirts are we talking about that are actually in the book?
The book's 408 pages, edition 2, and it features over 250 shirts worn by over 120 individual players.
That's incredible. That is an incredible amount. Daren, how many of them do you own? Do you own them personally, or is it just something that interests you, or it must be quite the collection?
I've got over 1,200 Spurs match worn shirts in my collection now. Neville probably more.
Wow.
And I actually was a bit rude. I should have mentioned Liam Ridley. Liam's a co-author in the second edition of the book, the updated version. Liam also has an amazing collection and knowledge of Spurs shirts. So, I'd say between sort of the 3 co-authors, we probably make up about 90-something% of the book. So,
That's crazy amounts. Absolutely.
Wow.
But I mean, from the work that I do with the retired ex players, it always amazes me that quite a few of them you speak to them about their shirts and shirts that they've collected from other players. A lot of them are Yeah, I will get up in the loft one day and get them out the black bin liners. I mean, it's I know, look, we look at it differently to them, because to them it is a job, but I just think to myself, like, how can you have them in black bin liners? Get them framed, get them up on the wall, like hermetically seal them, do something. This is history, man. Come on. It is crazy, isn't it?
It is incredible, and to be honest, you hope that some of the attic finds are make up some of the missing shirts that we've never found. I mean, it's interesting because Spurs probably is the only club where, to our knowledge, nobody has a pre-war Spurs shirt. You see early 1900 shirts, and many other clubs come up at auction or in private collections, but we're still searching for a pre-war shirt. And even shirts that we wore in sort of 60s, the navy, sort of the plain navy Umbro, haven't managed to find one from any player. So there are missing gaps, but we still hope somewhere in some attic up there,
Johnny Wallace private collection.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is, the really early shirts, there was no badge, prior to 1912. It's a plain white shirt. People, if it was, and again, they wore the shirts in the early days, one set of shirts for the whole season. So, even if people took away a shirt at the end of the season, they probably had it and didn't realise what it was. It was just a white shirt, just dumped or got rid of it. So.
You, Daren, you mentioned the badge there, which segues beautifully into the next part, because Spurs were one of the first clubs to actually have a club badge on a shirt, wasn't they? So can you give us a little history of the badge actually transferring onto the shirt, and when that was and how it came about?
Yeah. 1921 Cup final v Wolves at Stamford Bridge was the first time we wore the actual cockerel on the shirt. Didn't have the football underneath, but I think it was a FA at that time, an FA requirement that clubs wore the badges. So we put them on the shirts. We actually only wore the badge shirts for the first half. The weather was atrocious, so we changed at half time into just the plain shirt again. But the following season we adopted that, and we were the first club to then continuously wear the badge shirt with a cockerel for going forward for league games as well.
And the book actually shows us that lilywhite wasn't the primary history of the club shirt, and actually, horror upon horrors, we actually had more red featured in the early years than we did lilywhites.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, red featured. I'm just looking at my sort of list here. Red featured at least 5 seasons, but there was a whole variation of colours. I mean, it was amber and brown. We've worn red and blue striped shirts. We've worn blue and white striped shirts. So I think the first season that we actually wore the shirts just for one season was 1889 to 90 season. But it was only for that season, and it wasn't until about, I think, 1898 that we actually then changed and had the permanent white shirts. And I think the first season we wore white shirts, it was probably in recognition of Preston North End, which actually had done the double the previous year, so it was kind of recognising their feats. So that's why we ended up that season and wearing white shirts.
Daren, is there any history or knowledge behind why it was actually lily white, or was there other shades of white? Because you just think of white a lot of the time as white, but it is a specific lily white, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, there is a reason, and I probably needed Shaky to answer that one. I'm far too old to remember this, but in fact, I was searching for all my notes today and having a quick read of the book to refresh my mind. So you have to forgive me on that one for not knowing that answer.
We're building up quite the amount of homework here, aren't we? So, but look, as these little bits and pieces, if you do speak to Shaky and you get them, then send them over and we can tweak that out, and that'll put people out of their misery as to why it was. But you mentioned Preston there, Daren, and so we did. There was an association with them and their shirts, or is that not quite the fact? Because we know that. Was it? I think it's Jason. Is it Juve that wore the black and white stripes because of Notts County?
Yeah.
So it looks like there's quite the influence of one club on the other in the early days, isn't there? And there seems to be this tie with Preston, Daren.
Yeah, I mean, it's, from the research that Shaky done and our researchers that assist in the book, you can clearly see that it was influenced by the feats of what Preston North End done. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think also in there, when I was going through it, it's a case of you had to register your colours with the Southern League, and there wasn't a team in white. So in those days, I think it's Shaky told us on the original one. What you got to think about in early days, it wasn't football shirt manufacturers like there is today. You didn't get shades of pinks and lilacs, and so it was basically your primary colours: reds and blues and blacks and whites and things like that. So it wasn't pale blues and it's nowhere near the variety of colours. So apparently it was a Southern League thing. There wasn't a team registered in white. And Tottenham, as you say, influenced by Preston, but thought, well, there's a team that play in white, and so they went down that white route. But it's not specifically to copy Preston. And obviously,
Jace, are you telling me that in the early 1900s we didn't have cosmic swirls like the shirt from a couple of seasons ago?
We couldn't have done the purple and grape or whatever it was called and things like that in those days. Certainly not.
Fabulous shirt. That
a lady with a colouring pen would never have been able to do that.
I mean, the early days they would just literally go down Tottenham High Street. I think there was a sports company and buy a set of shirts, basically. I'm
sure we'll come on to it, but you must be aware of Triangle Sports in my old hometown of Hackney. That's where you used to go. I remember I spoke to Mark Falco about this, and he said that because you're a boyhood Spurs fan, you'd go to Triangle Sports in Hackney back in the day, and you just pick up like a white shirt and blue shorts. There was nothing, was there, with regards to replica kits?
Prior to Admiral in the 70s, sort of started producing, Leeds, England, Spurs shirts. Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
When you look through it, once we've gone for the lily white, that stays pretty much the same right through to the mid 70s, as you say, until kit manufacturing really took off. But the range of away shirts in that time, lots of stripes, lots of hoops, red and white stripes. We look like Sunderland in a few of the kits and things. So again, the influence of red right up until 1946, I think it looks like, is the last red shirt we actually had.
Yeah, absolutely. And prior to that, also, let's not forget the. Do you remember the centenary, the 125 centenary shirt? Which again we played for a number of years in a sort of like a Blackburn kit at the time, and the light. Well, you got it behind you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And European football brought about the change to an all-white kit, and that's, of course, is another thing. What's the story behind us taking the all-white for Europe?
Well, a lot of people say it's because the sort of it's Real Madrid played in white, but the reality is Bill Nicholson, who was obviously his attention to detail probably at that time was like no other. He felt that a white kit under the floodlights of European, the players would be able to pick each other out a lot better. I mean, I think the first time we played in the all white was 61 against Gornik Zabra. I've got the right pronunciation, but we did trial an all white kit. I think 5 years. Sound like a complete anorak now, I don't know, but 5 years before that, I think we
played. Keep it up.
We played Racing Club. Was it Racing Club Paris? Was it in '56 in all white? But yeah, it was Billy Nick at fault at the time that players, like performance-wise, would find each other better under the floodlights. Which at that time, we're talking about sort of floodlights, sort of 60 odd plus years ago. So they're not as advanced as they were now.
Not as good as a mobile phone torch as the light show last week or whatever.
Good one.
If only somebody had told Fergie about those grey shirts they couldn't see in the crowd.
Well, do you know, as a little aside with all this, I mean, this season's current, is it taupe they're calling that shade? I will die on the hill of us playing rubbish in that, because we are not able to see each other in peripheral vision. And I think Bill Nick was absolutely, pardon the pun, visionary in having that all white kit, because as you said, Jason, that grey kit where Man U got their heads handed to them on a plate by Southampton, I think it was, and this taupe kit. And even on social media the other day, I mentioned it, and a couple of people said, well, I've got sort of visual, like partially sighted, and somebody else said that they were colorblind, and when they watch us on TV, they can only see us playing by the boots. They can't actually see the kit. And I'm absolutely convinced that when they're playing, they can't actually see in peripheral vision runs being made because of the damn color of that kit. It is awful.
Is it officially
what do you reckon, Daren? Taupe, apparently.
Yeah, we were obviously in the final sort of throes of actually producing the book, which is the summer. So we collected the kit to photograph. When I first saw it, I thought, I actually quite like this. It's an unusual colour, but I have to agree. I think first time I saw on TV one of the away games and how it looks on TV, it's bizarre, really. It doesn't really. You know, you can't actually work out what colour it is actually from the TV. So you've seen it in the flesh. So, it's an interesting one. I mean, I quite like the colour, but practically, I don't think it particularly works well. But that's just my personal choice. But I don't think it'll stand out as one of the most memorable kits that we've had.
I know what. I don't want my cappuccino to come up that colour. That's for sure. Awful.
As my wife said, baby's first nappy, she calls that colour. So I'm sure Nike will be absolutely delighted with that. Daren, shirts all long sleeve up to a point, and then of course we get the short sleeve. So how did that come about? When did that come about? And I would think it's probably a seasonal reason with summer and that, or the warmer weather that led to going to short sleeves as well.
Yeah, I think after the war, I think late 40s is when the short sleeves sort of first appeared. I think prior to that, of course, shirts were really heavy, I can't remember when another shaky question really, or Liam would probably know as well. But yeah, I don't know specifically when it was, but it was late 40s that you can reference the first photographs of short sleeve shirts, and I think we've got a Ron Burgess shirt in the book as well, and Len Dukeman wearing their short sleeve shirts. The Dukeman one, you can see how sort of finer and lighter the actual shirt is. Which is good. And of course, mine, by the way, the Len Dukeman.
And of course, modern day shirt designers, as you say, when you look through it, they're pretty standards. But all that's changing really is the neckline. Some are V-neck, some are crew neck, round neck, or whatever. But the real explosion comes in that mid 70s. Once Admiral designed the kits. And for people that don't know, Leeds were the first Admiral kit where they took Leeds away kit. I think it was their away kit at first and produced it. And there is a fantastic documentary for anyone, if you can look it up, be it YouTube, Netflix, or whatever it's on, about the story of Admiral and how they revolutionised kit designs. And, people won't realise you couldn't buy a replica kit until Admiral started to produce them. You're right, you'd go and buy a white shirt out of Woolworths or something and an iron-on badge, and that was the only way you could produce what you called yourself a replica kit.
Yeah, I think it was called Get Shirty was the documentary, and a sports firm, I think based in Leicester, But of course, they revolutionised things. And I remember as a kid, I went off to United Sports in Ganshill and bought my replica kit, and that's how it all started for everybody. Yeah,
I think they only did kids as well at the start, didn't they? It was only kid sizes, adult size. It was about £2.50 for a full-on replica kit instead of for an elite shirt or whatever it is now.
Yeah, I must have been one of the rich kids at school because I got my kit quite early. I think my mum and dad treated me on that one. But I've also got a friend whose, I think, mother went to the same United Sports Shop and came back and gave an Everton kit. So he's, of course, now an Everton supporter. So I got off quite well, actually.
I remember my first Admiral kit that I got for a birthday and being taken to Ted Ditchburn's sports shop in Romford, and he was a curmudgeon old boy. Was Ted? He didn't suffer fools gladly, even in his own shop when he was selling stuff. And I got the yellow Admiral kit, and it used to come in like a little wash bag, if I remember rightly, when you bought it. It was marvelous times, as they say. So Admiral actually started the individual shirts as well, didn't they, with piping and edging and everything, so that you started to get a little bit of individuality with the shirts, so that you could tell them apart, couldn't you, Daren, from other clubs, that is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first sort of when Admiral came aboard and doing the Spurs kits, the 70s, we had these. I mean, they're quite iconic kits actually. And if you ask most people probably Lecoq Sportif or Admiral. But again, you had the Admiral logo piping down the sides, and it was just quite revolutionary. And I think it's probably only years later when you look back at the kit and design, you sort of realise just how good it was. Probably at the time, you just thought, "Oh, this is nice," but definitely iconic for us. And it's, again, I mean, really now you just don't see many come onto the market at auction, and they just don't come up. And you're probably paying 3,000 plus for a match worn shirt, home or away, that might come onto the market now. They're that scarce. Yeah.
And shirts are often defined by iconic moments in a club's history. And the 81 Lecoq Sportif shirt, as you say, the first of the new era with a trophy, and it will always be associated with Ricky Villa's cup-winning goal. But of course, the eagle-eyed viewers will spot, which we'll show you in a second, the number on Ricky's original shirt and then the number on the replay shirt are a totally different font. So that's you see that there. So what's the story behind the change in the font, even between the replay?
I think after the first match, kits were sent back to be washed at White Hart Lane, and I think Sylvie Webb, who was our laundry lady, she put them through the wash and noticed that they all sort of spoiled, and they didn't come out too well. And I think there's a bit of a panic going on in the club, but I think Lecoq Sportif sent over two sets of kit for the replay, this time with the actual, like, the bold sort of stitched on numbers, and that's the reason they didn't wash well, and so we changed. Yeah.
And you're right, they're stitched on numbers as well, don't forget. They're not the old press-ons that you get now.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Daren, then of course along you start to see shirt sponsors. So the beginning of the end of football as we know it, when sponsors started to get involved. And our first, just as an aside, I think Liverpool was one of the first, wasn't they, with Candy to actually have a sponsored shirt? But we was, that
wasn't Candy they had first? Was it Crown Paints?
Or was it
Crown Paints? Liverpool, or Hitachi, or something. It might have been Hitachi that they had first.
But ours was Holston. So have you got anything behind how that actually came about, and the year that was, and what made them go with them?
Yeah, well, I think we were quite late to the party bringing in a sponsor, and I think it was, what was it from memory, 83-4? Was it 83-4? I think.
Yeah.
I think the story was, I was chatting to Mike Rollo, of course, used to be the commercial manager of Spurs, and I think Mike actually just cold called Holston one day and said, "Would you be interested?" I believe that's the story, and so it's probably down to Mike to entice them to come forward on it. Yeah.
If we just on that, you're right. Mike did phone them. I think it was when we were playing Bayern in a European tie, and he was interested because Holston was obviously the German brewery, and I think he'd phoned them, and it was a bit too late for the European tie with Bayern Munich. But we had a live game with Man United at the following weekend where you could have a shirt sponsor, and in those days, shirt sponsors, if you were live on telly, you had to produce a much smaller shirt sponsor. It couldn't be the full chest like you'd see now. It was this tiny little thing in the middle. And I think it was that Man United game, away game, where we first, for a live TV game, first had Holston on the front of the shirt.
Correct. That was the 16th of December, 83. And I think, as you said, first live league game to be covered. And and that was when we wore it for the first time.
It was, yeah.
It's do you know what? It's absolutely incredible that Mike Rollo just sort of happens to phone a brewery and says, "Fancy getting involved with this." We're now seeing backroom people like Mike Rollo now having to go on gardening leave and transferring between clubs for transfer fees of like £20 million for like the chap from Brighton, the sporting director, to go from there to Chelsea, and it is literally in our lifetimes that it was just backroom people phoning up companies and saying, fancy a piece of this Holston. It's mad, isn't it, really, when you think how far all this sort of thing has gone in such a really relatively short amount of time.
Well, it's amazing, actually, when you look back, how much the manager did, how much Bill Nick was on his plate, down to sorting out shirts for the club and things. It's just, you can't imagine the actual manager going down the sports shop and sorting out the shirts now, can you?
Different world, wasn't it? Different game. Then, yeah.
Wow.
The famous story, of course, of Bill, it just shows you how managers differ. Everyone remembers us beating Bristol Rovers 9-0. I think Darren's on mute, isn't he?
No. No, he isn't. I think, Daren, if you can hear us, we lost the...
we lost you for a second, mate.
But you're back?
No, we can't hear you.
Still gone. All right, okay. Darren, if you can actually log out, let me just see if there's something here. No, let's try that. No, nothing changes then. Try that now, Darren. Can you hear us now?
He might have gone out now.
Yeah, he's gone out now. Okay, I'll put a time marker on
That's,
that when that was.
That 9-0 Bristol Rovers game, Bill weren't there for. It's amazing, isn't it?
That is crazy.
He was off scouting at Ipswich or something, looking at a player on a match day when Tottenham are playing. You can imagine that now in this whole network of scouts that you have. That the manager says, "I know we're playing at 3 o'clock Saturday, but I'm going off to watch Ipswich against, I don't know, Aston Villa or something." Look at a
Darren,
player.
you there now?
Yeah, sorry.
Never win.
That is crazy. All right, we'll pick it up again. I'll start with the next question, and then Ricky can edit that in. No problem. Darren, there's a story in the book as well. 83-84 European shirts where Spurs embroidered UEFA and spelt incorrectly, which is something we spoke about at the top of the show. So it wasn't actually a player's name; it was actually UEFA's, but they got wrong.
Yeah, I mean the shirts were sent off to Kilburn Sports, who used to do all the embroidery at the time for the club, who sent some shirts back, and it was embroidered instead of the UEFA. What they sent back was the EUFA. So you got the wrong UEFA spelling, and it was too late by then. So the first 3 rounds of that campaign against Drogheda, Feyenoord, and Bayern Munich, we wore the shirts with the incorrect spelling of UEFA. But of course, they're now highly sought after collectibles that you rarely see come up.
Oh, I bet they are. I bet exactly as I was saying with things like vinyl and misspelt pressings and that. Then, highly embarrassing at the time, no doubt. And UEFA being UEFA, I would think wouldn't have taken too kindly to that either. But as the sands of times pass, then those sorts of things become even more collectible. And would that, as a percentage, how much extra value would that put on to a shirt? So if a normal shirt was say £5,000, but you had one of these with a mispressing, would that add like maybe 20-30% to the value of it, or is it really hard to quantify?
I'd probably say up to 50% of the value.
Wow.
I mean, I scroll sort of all the auction houses for all Spurs memorabilia, and I actually can't remember the last time one came up at auction. So you're talking a number of years. So it's they're that rare. I mean, the thing is, again, let's just get sort of moving off of that one. But 82-3, the centenary season, when of course we had that quite iconic Lecoq Sport team, we had a yellow third kit, and I think we played in a match, a friendly match at Bristol Rovers at Eastfield, and that was when Gary Mabbott signed from there. And I was at that game, and I'm too old. I didn't even realise or remember that we played in yellow, but I managed to acquire one. And again, I think I'm the only collector who has the yellow third strip from the 82-3.
Wow.
So sort of, but again, it's hard to even put a price on that because if I ever sold or wanted to put that at auction, you're in sort of uncharted territory. It could go for, easily 5 figures. It's that rare.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, over my time, I mean, I got a call once from a collector in Spain that had managed to swap. It was a Feyenoord player that had the yellow UEFA Cup final shirt that he swapped for Terry Naylor's. And I actually got on a plane and flew to Madrid to pick up the shirt, buy it, and then flew straight back. I mean, but again, unique shirts that you're not going to see. So when you do get sort of finds like that, people often ask me, "What's this shirt? What's that worth?" If it's rare, if it's unusual, it's really difficult to put a price on things nowadays.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get an Ndombele shirt spelt TAXI on the back of it.
Yeah, I vaguely remember somebody called him playing for us. Yeah, whatever happened to him? Just the £60 million. Carry on, Jace. Carry on. We're going to end up in a malaise over this.
He haunts me today. Of course, the first real break from almost white, because those early Admiral ones, as you say, had a little bit of trim and Lecoq, but it came with the Hummel shirts, which are also now quite an iconic one that the club produces retros of, where you suddenly had the big diagonal panels across the top of the shirt. And I believe there were about 4 or 5 variations of that shirt worn in one match.
Yeah, correct.
And for viewers, that's the one we're talking about. That's the shirt we're talking about, that design.
Yeah, I mean, of course, sort of follow on through, and then you had the 87 FA Cup fiasco as well in that same that shirt, which was quite incredible. Shall I touch on the story of what happened on the 87 final?
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, I mean, I'm sure most people recall, Spurs ended up playing the 87 Cup final against Coventry, where half the team wore plain shirts and half the team had the Holston logo on. And it was a complete sort of mix-up there, because Johnny Wallace at the time, sort of nearer to the final, still hadn't got the shirts. I think went up to Peter Barnes, the club secretary at the time's office, to collect the shirts and sort of check the numbers, but without realising that some of the shirts didn't have the Holston logo. And it wasn't to the players that literally walked out during the game, did the line up, shook hands, etc., and then took their tracksuit tops off that they all realised that some had Holston and some didn't. But I suppose from Holston's point of view, you couldn't probably get better advertising than that because, of course, it was just the talk of that final, apart from the result that was, but we won't mention that. Yeah.
The shame of that is that, you know, Johnny Wallace, who was such a key part in the club's history in the Bill Nick, Eddie Bailey type era, it cost him his status at the club, and I think it also cost. Was it Peter Day lost his job at the club as well, which was sad. You know, real Tottenham people losing their jobs because of it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's correct. It was it got so much press and attention at the time, but yeah, they were the victims in all that, which is sad, really, considering the history of the club. But Johnny Wallace was funny though, because he was you could never prize any kit out of him. And again, one of the reasons why you just don't see early Spurs shirts around is at the end of the season, the times when Spurs only had 2 or 3 kits they'd wash and use, they were all generally cut up at the end of the season and then started given to all the apprentices, and they would use them to dub in to clean the first team's boots and stuff. So yeah.
I think if I could have one match shirt, if you could give me one, which is a shame we can't find it, and I don't know who's got that, but some lucky person has that, would be the shirt from the Aussie benefit game of Maradona's. I mean, I'd still answer that question: who's the best player you've ever seen play for Tottenham? And I still say it's Maradona, just from that one game. Just those of us sort of there that night will never forget that night, and to see Diego, and he was in his pomp then as well, the absolute prime pre-86 World Cup Maradona that run rings around Terry Busher and such. And the hand of God's never bothered me. I've only ever seen that second goal and just thought that's something else. The second goal he scored that day on a bobbly pitch and that. But yeah, if you could give me one or find it, try and find me Maradona's from that night.
Jeff, people say to me, what's the shirt you'd love most? And it is that shirt. And nobody knows where it is. I mean, Aussie brought Maradona to the club, a few years ago. And I was fortunate to meet Maradona at the time. We didn't speak English. And I said to him, you haven't still got your shirt you wore. And he didn't. Well,
Glenn probably took it. It had the 10 on it. Of course, it was Glenn's 10 shirt, wasn't it? Glenn's probably got it and kept quiet about it.
Glenn's not got it. Glenn assures me he's not got it. I have asked him and he says, no, I've not got it. I reckon he's got it in a bulletproof glass case somewhere at his place. I know where his boots are, Darren. You know the story of Maradona's boots from that game. Do you know of that?
No.
Oh, okay. So if Clive, he came to the game, Maradona, and didn't have any boots with him. Amazingly, because he flew in from Paris, if I remember rightly, and I think he was around a size 7. And Clive Allen, being the same size, offered him his brand new boots, but Maradona said to him, no, I want to wear your old boots. He said they're already worn in. I'll wear those. So he actually wore Clive Allen's old boots. Clive wore his new ones, and after the game gave them back. So Clive Allen's got match worn Diego Maradona boots, which he kept. And when he was moving house, had a clear out, and his wife said to Clive, by the way, that old pair of boots you had up in the spare room, she said, I've put them out for the dustman. She said, because they're old boots. Luckily the dustman hadn't actually been. They were due that morning and running a bit late, so he had to run out to the end of the drive and reclaim Maradona's match-worn boots, which very nearly ended up in the municipal tip, which is absolutely crazy. But but the shirt, no one seems to know where that is, do they?
Isn't it Steve Hodge that's got his famous Hand of God shirt?
Steve Hodge got the Hand of God shirt, which he then, I mean, for years, Steve Hodge was trying to sell
Terry Butcher or something because he thought Terry Butcher would beat him up.
Yeah. But amazingly, Steve Hodge was trying to sell the shirt for a number of years, and the price he wanted, which was, you know, it was £120,000, which was a lot. But that was in an era before sort of the shirt market, sort of the boom in shirts and values took off. So of course nobody was buying it, and of course it came up for auction and sold for 6.1 million to the Qataris just before the World Cup, and that set a sort of a new sort of precedent level, you know, on shirt price, broke the record, and of course because of values. I mean, you even had Maradona's wife and daughter say it wasn't the shirt, but it's, you know, it's recorded in the biography that he gave it to Steve Hodge, so that's, you know, the provenance is undisputed. But yeah, that's what happened. And again, I think if you sort of go forward now, Lionel Messi, when he plays Argentina, they run him off 100 sort of match prepared shirts, because Messi gets so many requests now for shirts that, as I said, the kit manufacturers run him off 100 for each game, so they're embroidered. Wow. And he hands them out to people, and that's why, you know, whenever Messi plays, they used to sort of the opposing teams used to sort of, you know, rush into the dressing room or on the pitch and try and do the swap with him for the actual match worn shirts. Yeah,
crazy.
That is good. But that must make it even more difficult to try and pick out what actually is a match worn shirt. If they're doing that to that level, I presume it'd just be because they're not even getting mud on the shirts anymore, are they? That's the thing. They're coming off as pristine as they went on.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when they're, you know, they've got mud staining, and, you know, you can identify the shirt, that helps in the provenance. But yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you know, counterfeiting's sort of ever increasing, which is difficult. I mean, Liam, Shaky, you know, they're experts. They can identify a shirt down to the stitching and I mean, nowadays shirts have serial numbers on it. I mean, Liam's sort of, you know, it's frightening, the information he knows. He'll tell you which batch and which, you know, so you can actually, there are ways of doing it, but there's so much counterfeiting now that's, you know, because of the values of shirts. I mean, we were talking about Glenn Hoddle. I think last week, a Glenn Hoddle shirt for the centenary season, it wasn't a specific match, just a, you know, from that season, match worn. It was sold a number of years back through one of the other auction houses, but it came up last week and it sold for 13,000 plus premium. Wow. You know, it's just staggering, the value on shirts, because again, you've got all the Asian buyers now coming into that market. So, you know, good quality shirts with the right provenance. You know, the market has just exploded.
Daren, am I correct in saying that they couldn't actually verify the provenance of that shirt as well? That's just sold of Glenn's. There was maybe a small doubt of whether that was actually match worn that I saw from the report.
Well, Liam confirmed to me that it was definitely a shirt from the 82-83 season. But you know, I don't think there's any way, because it's not a specific game and nobody's sort of signed a letter of provenance on that. There's no way of really telling if it was an actual physical match worn shirt. It was definitely the right shirt, sort of all the right. It's definitely from that season and a player's shirt. Yeah.
Thing is, crackers as well. What in terms of genuine match worn shirts, and Darren's right, they're great if you get all your mud on. But the way modern football is and modern pitches, you play Tottenham in August or September, you'll find it hard to get a mud stain on a shirt, because the pitches are not the same way, and you're not allowed to make sliding tackles and things like that. So, you know, the game's become far less physical in that respect anyway. So, you know, when you played Wimbledon back in the 1980s with Dave Bassett in charge, you'd find mud-splained and blood-splained splattered shirts all over the place. But now, you know, you look at the game now, and there's barely any. You don't see mud on a pitch now, unless you get, like I say, a Newport away or something like that in the cup.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you might get the odd sort of the grass stain. Yeah, but again, there's other ways to identify the batch number, the, you know, specific serial numbers. You can now check, and that's a way of verifying things. You can still check them, but and I mean, interestingly, the club now collects, I think it's 15 shirts from every game, and they're sold on match worn shirts. So again, the club, they don't launder those shirts, because most collectors want them sort of, you know, dirty and basically. That adds that provenance. I think England also, their shirts, they're all, after the game, all laundered after the game, and run through that process. Yeah.
I've got a Robbie Keane match worn boot from last game of the season, Molineux away, and it still actually has a dried piece of mud between two of the studs. And you're right, just those little things like that just all really add to it, doesn't it? That's still there, that little piece of mud in between the two studs, and makes part of it.
Yeah, one of my sort of prize shirts in my collection, and we all remember, of course, the Gareth Bale taxi for Mycon game, and I'm fortunate enough I collected that shirt on the night from the dressing room, smelly, dirty, but it's an amazing shirt, isn't it? Quite iconic, and I made a donation, rather large donation, to Spurs Wishes charity at the time, the chairman's wife organised it to come up from the dressing room.
Nice.
So,
there is a great story about Gareth in the book with the famous the grey and black half and half shirt we wore, where he complained that the positioning of the cockerel was rubbing against his nipple and irritating him. So they actually moved the cockerel on that shirt so that it didn't interfere with Gareth's nipple. There's a great story in there. Great story.
There's also, there's an interesting story. Like Harry Kane, sometime, and Bale was also the same. They asked for shirts to be prepared for him in a small size. They didn't generally wear them, but they, for some reason, wanted shirts just so they could sort of try them on the day of the fit. Harry Kane did the same, because occasionally you see a Harry Kane England or Spurs shirt in a small come up for auction. People say, "Oh, that's a fake. That can't be right." It's not match worn, but it was a match prepared. But players all, they're quite. Lots of players have their specific requirements on shirts and bits. And look at the size of Royale's shirts. Shorts, should I say? They're quite long, aren't they?
I think the tightness of the shirts probably goes to that thing of just they want it harder for people to grab hold of. The big baggy, the old baggy types that you could just pull a shirt easily. And it was Kappa, wasn't it, that did the stretch shirt so you could see the shirt pull. And I think nowadays, that's Adama Traore, of course, oil boy. He covers himself in oil so no one can grab him.
I tell you what, Jace, that Kappa shirt, dark days for those of us north of like 15, 16 stone, let me tell you.
For 10 stone, you were struggling.
Oh, man. As the great Paul Hawksby says, like some of the chaps going on match day, it looked like sausages in skins, didn't it? It really was. Yeah, it was. There's no hiding in a Kappa shirt any of your little bodily foibles, is there? There really isn't. They were tight. Daren, moving on, we're talking about mud on shirts, and probably one of the shirts that you might see a little bit of dirt on is, of course, a goalkeeper's shirt from diving about in it. Although there is a few outfield players that probably dive more than goalkeepers, but they were really just simple green. You shut your eyes and you see Pat just in that green Spurs shirt, but you get to the 80s and they then come under the microscope for a bit of rejigging and a bit of redesigning. And not only did they get redesigned, they went absolutely mad with them shirts, didn't they? They are some of, across the whole of football, but Spurs had some absolute rascal goalkeeper shirts, did they not? As Jace holds up to the camera there. So honestly, absolutely one above. Brilliant. I love those shirts. I've got a couple of replica ones at home, and my lad being a goalkeeper as well. I just love those goalkeeper shirts from that period.
Yeah, and they, we were talking about the size of the shirts. Of course, they were all, players like Ian Walker all used to wear extra large, so they looked enormous. But yeah, it kind of exploded, and that's why in the sort of revised edition of the book, we thought we'd cover off the goalkeeper shirts in a lot more detail, and there's some sort of great variations there. And of course, we had Ray Clements wearing a red goalkeeper shirt at time. I went to one friendly. We were playing in Australia against Vasco da Gama, and we played in sky blue, and Ray was wearing his red. And funny because years on, I went to actually acquire that shirt that he was wearing on that day. But yeah, I mean, I love some of the, and again, just about every colour you can imagine: white, grey. You know, the goalkeepers worn them all in their time. I still think. I mean, if you look at the Lecoq Sportif, they also had sort of the royal blue version, the greens, and that's and red. But I still, for me, they're great goalkeeping jumpers. But probably the favourite is the plain Pat Jennings sort of type, the Umbro shirts, the plain green that he wore, through the 70s. So yeah,
Quite
You've got,
often with the go on,
I was going to say,
go on,
you got a
Jason.
great
Sorry.
one in there. You got a great one in there, Darren. Where so all those people that don't like red sponsors on their shirt, and of course I always say it started with Thompson. You got a Casey Keller shirt as a goalkeeper, as almost the outfield shirt, white, but it has got the blue Thompson. So that's got to be a pretty rare one.
Yeah. I didn't think he wore it that often, Casey Keller at the time, but yeah. Of course, that was when Thompson's, like, their logo was red, wasn't it?
The first ones, yeah.
Yeah. What was it? The Aubrey Morris was the guy at Thompson's, wasn't he? Who was a big Spurs fan, and I think signed a £12 million sponsorship deal at the time of the club. But unfortunately, his logo was red, so which probably didn't go down too well at the time.
with Darren, with the goalkeeper's shirts, they don't actually release those as replicas for sale either. That there's some of those. I mean, as I said, my lad's a goalkeeper. He's also a replica shirt collector, not match worn, not yet, thankfully for my pocket. But he said that quite a lot of like Hugo shirts that he was wearing, they don't actually release for sale. So there must be a value with some of those if you can get maybe one from the manufacturer or a prototype, even not match worn, surely.
Yeah, I think the commercial this probably the commercial regions. I think they generally do like the home goalkeeper shirt, or they produce the main ones. But of course, there are certain games that you have a variation colour, which for commercial reasons they wouldn't produce. And again, for a season, there's prototypes that do come out. Sometimes Spurs sell off to their staff, all the surplus kit at the end of the season. And I think recently I picked up a pink one there that was a prototype that was never worn. But over the season, goalkeeper, again, like, so many variations now. A goalkeeper probably could have sort of 9 or 10 different variations of a shirt. So, if they're one-offs, they're not going to be produced, and you can sort of pinpoint specific games there.
Prototype goalkeeper shirts, Darren. I'll speak to you off air. I have a cash buyer waiting for you.
Then, of course, we reached the Premier League era, where football began, because there was no football before the Premier League. Apparently, we reached 1993 and the onset of sleeve badges from the Premier League, but also the first time we get squad numbers and squad names on the back of the shirts. And the first one we've got featured in the book is number 4 Gica Popescu shirt, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? 94. Yeah. But no, absolutely. And I think the early seasons, the Premiership badge was different. It changed then. So again, the early Premiership shirts, they're getting harder and harder to acquire now. Yeah.
And one of the good features, I think, on the revised edition you've got is you actually cover all the women's shirts, because the early days, the women's team weren't given the same shirts and things like that. And obviously, even now, women's design of shirts, the shape of the shirts has changed. And we've seen, I think was it this year or last year, where they've said, no, we don't want light colour shorts and things for other reasons. So, even the women's shirt design, and they had different sponsors to some of the men's shirts as well in those early days. Yeah,
I mean, Sega was an early sponsor. But again, the first few years, it was all the women's game. It was like literally like park football. And I think they were, wearing odd shirts. I think Johnny Wallace gave the women in the early days a set of kits to wear. Probably, purely because they were all mismatched, and it was, it was a million miles from where the game is now. And as you say, women's kit designed, the cut for a woman. England had the same problem. When it's amazing to see, through the 70s and that England ladies team, the Lionesses, they were wearing hockey shirts. You really, and again, it's the last few years, I think Umbro were the first to do actual tailor-made kit designs for the women, and the amount of detail now also goes into the women's team. Yeah.
Daren also featured in the book. One of the last shirts is that famous Klinsmann dive shirt. There it is. Look at that. Fantastic. And Jason was talking about Klinsmann. Probably, would you say, the last world-class player to actually sign for us? Obviously, Kane came through the ranks, and but at the time of him coming, he was absolutely global superstar. And that dive that day, I think, just I don't know. I think because he was that real sort of world-class player, you didn't quite expect him to actually do that, to get that sort of ironic humor with the dive, but the shirt itself, iconic now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when he's a very unusual character in that, he had a great sense of humour, but he was quite grounded. He used to drive around in his old Volkswagen car, and at the time, I think none of us could believe he'd actually signed. But that first game, what was it, against Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it, from when he scored? It's just brilliant, the dive. And as I said, moments like that make it quite an iconic shirt. And probably for us old Spurs supporters, it's sort of, there's only a sort of handful of sort of iconic moments like you instantly recognise, and that's one of them when he did the dive. Yeah.
It's sad, yes. It was Andy Bramer who scored the penalty that in that World Cup final. Didn't he die yesterday? It was this week or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, passed away yesterday.
Left back.
Yeah. He's famously very, very left-footed, but took that penalty with his right foot. I think it was about the 85th minute of that final, and steps up and takes a penalty like wrong-footed. It was but that Klinsmann shirt and that Klinsmann dive, absolutely. It's I suppose really when that all adds value as well, Daren. If you get the taxi from Mike on shirt, the dive shirt, you just think of that sort of iconic thing. Do you know one that always comes to mind with me? Terry Gibson with his ripped shirt nearly down to his navel. The old, I think it was an Admiral shirt he was wearing. I mean, even if somebody gets an injury and gets a fair bit of claret over it.
Yeah, I mean, love a bit of blood on a shirt.
Terry shirt.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that must all that as soon as you see something like that, you think to yourself, oh wow, now I want that. I want that shirt because that has happened, innit?
Yeah, I mean, do you remember when Hugo Lloris sort of ended up in the back of the net, sort of injured, and that cut his shirt off? The league game, so that's sort of in my collection now. I mean, I love things like that. It's there was one this season which I don't know what happened to, but was it Brennan Johnson come out with there was no the Nike swoosh, whatever you call it. It wasn't on the shirt, was it? That's I mean, because of the amount of TV coverage now and the media coverage, every detail, every abnormality like that sort of stands out, and it's immediately recognised. So of course, loads of people on social media where's the Nike sort of swoosh on Brennan Johnson's, but it makes the shirt immediately recognisable. So of course they're going to be highly sought after. Absolutely.
Your WhatsApp group, Daren, must go absolutely potty, doesn't it? If something like that comes out and Brennan Johnson, there's no swoosh on his shirt. Get in there, the laundry basket. Go and get that. Someone get it.
That's how sad And you're absolutely right. Even my son-in-law now scrutinises. I've taught him well. He scrutinises every game, or Liam will pick up on something. And absolutely, that's how sad we are.
Brilliant.
I think the next one will be a Ryan Sessegnon shirt that he's worn for 90 minutes during a game, won't it? I mean, that would be quite a thing, complete with a bandage or something. None of us look back on that League Cup final in 2002 with much affection. The only time we've got to Cardiff for a cup final, that long trip down on a Sunday, beating Arsenal in a semi-final. No, who did we beat? It was the year we beat Chelsea 5-1 in the semi-final, wasn't it? Beat Chelsea the first time we beaten Chelsea for yonks. Go to Cardiff for a cup final against Blackburn and end up coming back without the trophy. But there's a shirt in the book from that final that we never actually wore at all.
Yeah, that cup final, I think after the semis, when the two finalists, they did a coin toss to see who was wearing which kit, and Blackburn won the toss, and of course we had a colour clash, our home and away. So Adidas actually ran off a sort of a one-off yellow shirt, which we wore in the final. But in addition to that, Adidas, they ran off the same shirt in white with embroidery, and if we won the trophy, we were going to change. Players were going to change and lift the trophy wearing the actual white shirt. So they're highly sought after because you've got a set of them that's run off, and as you said, they were never worn. So yeah, again, you just don't see them come up at auction now. They're that rare. But that final, I remember that we just thought we'd turn up a win, didn't we? Very disappointing.
I think we actually played okay on the day. I think we hit the woodwork a few times, and didn't Ledley's debut season probably made one of his only ever mistakes, and we ended up just couldn't put a ball in the back of the net.
No. It's that was the first ever final actually in an enclosed roof as well, wasn't it? So so that made it even being a club of first with everything. You just thought to yourself, okay, first ever domestic cup final indoors. If we can add that to the trophy cabinet, but it wasn't to be that day, was it? So, Daren, we spoke briefly about red sponsors, and there's always an outrage with it. And of course, we had the sponsorship from Thompson's, which was in red, and caused a lot of outrage. Do you know if the club actually speaks to these companies like AIA and asks them, look, I think if we can make AIA in blue, and by the way, it does actually look really effective and much better in blue, we'd probably actually be able to sell more shirts, and you'll get a little bit of a pat on the back for actually changing the colour of it to suit our fan psyche. Is this something they will play about with colours and workshop it at all?
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying this, that with AIA, which obviously have been the main sponsor for a number of years, I think red is a lucky colour for them. It's certainly their corporate colour. But I think where they are in Asia, I think red is considered a lucky colour. I think I'm right. I remember discussing it with one of the sort of senior AIA guys years ago. But we're all purists. We'd love to see red come off of the shirt. But it's a corporate sponsor, and that's their prerogative, isn't it? Yeah.
I think as well they say, Crackers, that if you put it into blue, it just blends into the rest of the shirt, whereas in red, it completely stands out, which is obviously the image they want to do. They want the AIA to be so much more visible, and I think what people probably don't realise when they sponsor shirts like that is that, and I'm not, I think this applies to all clubs as well, that whilst there's the appeal to the 250,000 Spurs fans in the country or whatever it is, they want that shirt to be seen by millions around the world, which includes 95% or 98% of the viewers won't be Spurs supporters. So, it's them they want to see AIA on the shirt, not a Spurs fan to see AIA on the shirt. That's how the marketing gurus would explain it. And I think they pay, 44 million a season
Wow.
So, you know, it's a fair old whack that they pay into it.
He who pays the piper and all that,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, Daniel's always accused of being the money machine. If Daniel suddenly took 20 million from a blue company and we couldn't sign a player, you can imagine the outrage. Why haven't we signed him? Well, because we've lost 25 million of sponsorship because you didn't want red on the shirt.
But I think, as I said, I think AIA, it's their corporate colours. But
Yeah,
we're talking about, I mean, Thompson also, it was red.
Mansion was red.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, why should a company change their corporate colour? And I don't think the club would really be at liberty to demand or ask that. I mean, I know the AIA sponsorship's lasted many years. It's a good sponsorship where, you know, it's worked well for both parties. But you know, some of the sort of second strips don't have the red, but you know, it is what it is. It's as I said, it's their corporate colours, and I think it's a lucky colour, red, in Asia. So yeah. But again, we were talking about sort of shirts. I mean, you know, I'm a little bit probably too big to fit into a shirt, but you know, at least with AIA and the sponsors that we've had, you know, you'd be okay wearing them. I mean, you know, some of the sponsors, and like you ended up like someone like me wearing a fat face type sponsor on a t-shirt. It doesn't go down too well, doesn't it? So I think quite lightly, and you know, some of these sort of companies that sponsor them, you wouldn't be proud to be wearing your Mansion, of course. Yeah.
I mean, I prefer AIA to say that big red blob on the right in the centre of the shirt.
Yeah.
For those of you watching in black and white, Jason holding up a picture of a Mansion shirt there.
For those of you listening to it as a podcast, you got no chance.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, Jace. Carry on.
One of my favourite parts of the book, as well, as you say, it's great to see the history, and I love my characters at Tottenham, like your Johnny Wallace's, like your Sylvie Webbs, and it's great that you do the part in the book that features all the people that have not just worn the shirt, but actually part of the shirt process.
Yeah. So you're talking about the legacy numbers? Yeah.
No, the Sylvie Webbs, you know, to have those features within the book of people that look after the shirt, take care of the shirt for donkey's years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people behind the scenes in the laundry room and stuff. I mean, it's amazing sort of the work they do, and you know, I mean, nowadays, you know, with all the women's team and all the various sort of the under 21s, etc. I mean, the operation is quite huge, and you know, it's just fascinating. You know, we were talking about football in a different era. You know, couple of washing machines there, put the wash on, throw the kits in, you know, dry them, etc. Now, as I said, because of the scale of the operation, and again, you know, we're talking about nowadays where, you know, a mistake will be picked up, so you have to be quite meticulous. We mentioned about whether there was a shirt with a player's name. It's the work they do. They can't afford to make mistakes, and you know, because of the sort of the nature now and the sort of social media and how the game's covered. But yeah, it's a hell of an operation. Yeah.
You're leaning on an open door there with people around the clubs, Jason, because I grew up living with Nan and Grandad, and Nan was the tea lady at Leighton Orient, or Orient as it was then, and 3 doors down was old Mother Brown, and she was the wash lady at Orient, so she'd have all the kits going. Nan would make tea for the players and official half-time cup of tea. And she had a little cubby hole down at Brisbane Road, and she'd make tea for Brian Moore and Jimmy Hill and Cluffy when he'd turn up, and everybody, and yeah, just laundering kits and that, you know, just one shirt a season. It really is. It's just madly different now. They must get through hundreds and hundreds of shirts a season on a match day, because they must have 3 or 4 each, as you say, with Messi 100 shirts manufactured. So you know, I don't suppose anything really goes in a washing machine anymore, does it, Daren?
Yes, some do. I mean, as I said, currently, so you've got players change sort of first half, you know, at half time. So you've got 2 shirts being worn by every player. The current arrangement is that I think it's 15 shirts gets collected and then auctioned at the match worn. So, but the rest will go back in to be laundered and that and used again. Yeah, so they still do that. Yeah.
That's I thought every one they wore now was a brand new shirt. I must admit, for that game, and that's it.
Not to my knowledge, but I may be wrong. I'll find out. I'll
it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
More homework, Daren.
More homework.
Yeah. Be a busy man. Look, since the original publication, a new edition to this season, seen some special features rather than just more shirts added. So there's the stories of Marine in now, the 267 shirt, and some great interviews as well, including the one with Nike. So there's some really, really brilliant updates in this book. So a little bit on some of those updates with Marine and the 267 shirt.
Well, Marine was quite amazing because it was, of course, during COVID. So, I mean, when the draw was made, they couldn't sell tickets, but we ended up selling, or Marine came up with this initiative of selling, what do you call it?
Virtual tickets, wasn't it? Virtual, yeah.
Over 32,000. I think it was a tenner each, and everybody bought tickets. Marine put on a board or something out their ground. But again, that was the first time that on the patches, the red patches, that they put the actual number of times that a team won the cup. So I think the number 8 went on the Emirates FA Cup patch on that game. Is it 8?
I mean, we've never won a trophy.
Yeah,
won a trophy. I mean, Ricky Villa scored that goal in a pre-season friendly and things and such. That picture of Danny Blanchflower running around with, I thought that was just something you ate your egg out of. I didn't realise that was the actual cup. God.
So on Marine, basically, what happened is the players, because of COVID, they couldn't swap shirts after the game. So the club actually ran off a set of shirts embroidered with the Marine FA Cup, which were given to players after. So they're quite rare. They're not, of course, match worn, but they're quite rare in the embroidered part of it. So that was the Marine game, which was quite unique. What was the other thing we were?
The 267 shirt.
Yeah, the 267. I mean, it's quite unusual because if you notice in the book, of course, we've covered the England shirt as well when he broke the record.
Yeah.
We decided to put that in the book because it was quite sort of historic, both moments. And when I collected the shirts from Harry, I didn't realise that both the England and Spurs shirt were literally signed with personal messages from all his teammates, which makes it quite unique shirts. And so we photographed them and returned them back to Harry. We were hoping that we could keep it under wraps till the book came out, because I think very few people in the outside world sort of had ever seen this shirt. So it was a nice thing to cover, of course, and quite a unique. Yeah, so we were quite pleased with that.
And as we've said, shirts defined by iconic moments, iconic goals, and perhaps other than Maradona's shirt, the only other real iconic shirt that isn't in there is the Lucas Moura shirt.
Yeah, I contacted the club and I sent an email to Lucas, and the shirt is actually framed and with his family in Brazil, and we were trying to get the shirt photographed in Brazil. He was actually willing to take out the shirt and have it photographed. He's a great guy. But frankly, we just ran out of time. We couldn't organise it. We were under pressure to get the book into print. We were trying to deal also with including the legacy numbers, so that was taking up a lot of time. And of course, we had the rush to get the Australian tour or the Asian tour, the shirts from that game, which we covered off in the book. Well, so we know where it is. Lucas, it's sitting in the family home in Brazil. Hopefully, we'll have more time for the next edition, and we can swap over the shirts in the book and include the famous Lucas Moura shirt.
And of course, that's the last current change to type shirts that Tottenham have done is those legacy numbers, right from Stanley Briggs is your number 1, and we're now right up to date with Dragu's in at 882. And I suppose number 1000, when he eventually arrives in 15, 20 seasons time, will be an iconic shirt, the 1000th player.
Daren, he's lost there. Yeah, let me just put a time marker in. I'll wait for him to come back in. There he is. Stage.
Shall I run that question again?
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you run that again, yeah, just go with that from the start of that question again, and I'll mark it out to Ricky.
Okay, matey. And of course, the newest addition to the Spurs shirts are, of course, the legacy numbers, right from Stanley Briggs, who's number 1, right through now to Draguzin, who's 882. And I suppose the rush will be to who's going to be number 1000 in 15 or 20 years' time, or whenever we reach that stage.
Yeah, the legacy number. I mean, again, first to our knowledge, the first club in the world to produce legacy numbers. It was initiatives that Steve Jukes, the kit man, first came up with, and then involved a few historians. And I mean, Bob Goodwin was involved in it. I mean, 2 or 3 other people that will probably listen to this and be annoyed that I can't remember the name. But great team effort and the enormous amount of work to actually go through the history books and produce this. But it's great, really, isn't it? I mean, it was so well received at the time, and it's quite historic, really. And I think the club are looking at providing or giving certificates to not just current and ex players, but players from years ago, the family members, and
nice touch.
Yeah, I think it really is, and of course it means that each Spurs shirt former players is quite unique with their own legacy number. Yeah.
Lovely man, Dukesy. He real, and you can tell the affection that the players and ex-players have for him. He had his charity game back in the summer, and I suppose that just shows you the importance of a kit man. We touched on Johnny Wallace and Dukesy today. They really are. I don't know. They just sort of sit as almost like the UN in the dressing room, don't they, between management and players, and they're almost like going to the barber, and they're that ear that players can lean on. So you can see, but you can really see the affection that a lot of the players have for like people like Dukesy, and that they form a real big part of the team, don't they, on match day and just throughout the week.
Yeah, and again, it's not just running off kits now. I mean, it's more involved. Each player will have their own specific requirements. The way they want kit laid out, certain things in the kit and their requirements. And I suppose you develop quite a personal relationship with the kit man. We haven't, if you look at our kit man, Johnny Wallace, we haven't had many in the last sort of 70, 80 years, have we? They sort of kind of, lost the pace. And as I said, unfortunately with Johnny Wallace, there was one incident that kind of tainted sort of years and years of sort of work, meticulous work, where he didn't make any mistakes. And but it's quite an important role in the club, really. And as I said, when you think about the amount of kit and the different teams, it's a hell of a operation. Yeah,
very much so. Jason, I'm going to come round the table one by one. Going to give you one home shirt and one away shirt for you to be able to wear it or say, yeah, that's the one for me. That just defines Tottenham Hotspur. I think for myself, I love the Admiral yellow shirt with the little blue braces down each side. That shirt, and for some reason I always just see Terry Naylor in it. When I shut my eyes, I can see Terry Naylor wearing that. That's a real favorite. And do you know what? Just a plain white shirt with the blue cockerel on it. I shut my eyes and see Stevie P signing as a young lad or playing as a young lad in that. They're 2 shirts I really do love, and a real big tip of the hat to that Cosmic shirt from a couple of seasons ago, which I hated it when it first came out. I thought, what are you doing? And then I don't know, it just grew on me to the point of going like into the top 3 shirts that we've ever had. There's going to be a lot of people of a vintage absolutely screaming at me for including that, but I do love it. Daren, for you next, and then we'll come to you, Jace, for shirts.
Home and away for personal reasons. I think I've got the Graham Roberts shirt when we lifted the UEFA Cup. I went to every round that year, so that shirt for me is sort of the one that sort of rank. Away shirt again for personal reasons. It would have to be the Ajax, the Bash Charrington sort of green shirt, and purely because if you look back at your sort of matches that you've attended, there's thousands of them. That's probably the greatest night that it was just unbelievable when we actually scored that third. So, that's the away shirt for me.
I think for me, the Admiral home shirt will always be, because that's the first one I really remember, the first one I could buy. It goes with the that Division 2 season was my first real season of going home and away types of games. So that will always be the shirt that I'm grown up with, and I'm lucky to have Johnny Duncan and Stevie Perryman and Terry Naylor and Birkinshaw and that sign that shirt. So that's the iconic one for me. I think away shirts, I hated the green. Lucas, as a shirt, could have thought, what on earth are we wearing green for? And Lucas Moura's moment, and that swimming kit that we wore, was it last season? Looked like a swim shirt suit, didn't it? I mean, we've had some bad ones. I hated the one with the blue one, the early 90s with Spurs emblazoned all across the tops of the shoulder. I thought, oh no, not that. But
it's funny because the green one didn't. I don't think it sold particularly well. I don't think.
I can see that, but now it becomes synonymous with that one night.
But as I said, for me, it's personal reason, just remembering a specific game. I mean,
that shirts too, isn't it? But I loved one of the early Hummel away shirts, the navy blue with the diagonals. I think the fans will know the one I mean. And I also quite liked the yellow that I think we wore at home one night against Porto, which had the blue check on the top sleeve. I can remember Gary Lineker and people like that wearing that shirt.
We got a name for that, the bird poo shirt.
Is it the bird poo shirt? I mean, but there's that grape and purple that was it 2 years ago now? Whoever come up with grape and purple or whatever. No.
But remember the brown kit as well at the time. I don't think the brown kit was well received, but now is quite a popular shirt and sought after. Years on. Yeah. But
there are shirts that come out and you think, I can't see that. I mean, the grey and black, like I said, the bow season, grey and black, I never thought that would work. But as soon as it come out, I think as well, sometimes when they release a shirt and you see the leaked image come through, you just see the shirt. You then need to see the whole kit kind of thing. I must admit, I'm probably not quite in the club's history that I prefer us always in white socks and blue shorts than navy blue socks. I think we always look that little bit smarter with white socks than the thing. So the kits kind of with white socks always work better for me than when you put navy blue socks. Even though the shirt is exactly the same, whichever colour sock you wear, it just looks different and cleaner with white socks.
Yeah, and me personally, I like to see Spurs just play European matches in all white. My preference is always going to be white shirts, navy shorts, and white socks.
We're not been in Europe this season all year.
Daren, the taupe shirt aside, you're not allowed to pick this. Is there any shirt where you look at it and you just go, I really, really dislike that shirt? Is there anything that really catches the eye and you go, no, that just never worked for me?
There was there was a sky blue version recent years. Was it? It might have been in the Under Armour era. So I'm just quickly looking at the book now. It wasn't our traditional sort of light blue shirt, and it just didn't work for me. But
yes, I do. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, it was an odd shade of blue, wasn't it? A very I don't know. It was a real sky blue, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 1920. It was a Nike third shirt. I just thought it was kind of the third shirt that it was like there was not much thought given into it. Oh shit, we better do a quick third shirt. I think the harsh because I think I've come up with some great designs recently, but that didn't work for me. But that's my own personal choice. Yeah,
I quite liked the underarm one that the when we won 4-0 at Stoke, the Harry Kane scored that curler, the light blue with the dark blue going across the shirt. And again, I remember when I saw that first, when they just released, I thought, no, that's not going to work, that shirt. But actually, it also helps when you see players with their tailored look rather than us people with the beer guts and things. Shirt looks a bit different on them than it does on us, doesn't it?
Oh, and the 1890 in red didn't work for me.
just before we move on and ask where you can get the book, etc., I do have to ask you, Daren, about some of the counterfeit shirts that you see pop up from time to time in various markets that aren't based on any design whatsoever. So have you ever seen one of those and gone, oh, do you know what? I actually wish that was our shirt, because I have seen a couple of people with them and I've looked at them and thought, that don't look too bad, actually. It's completely counterfeit, but there's some thought gone into the design there.
Yeah, I mean, you see them sort of leaked on social media, and over the years, I agree. There's been a couple of really great designs. I think there was one of them with the AIA, which was in navy, but it looked really good. You think, oh, hope that is leaked, but. Yeah, but I think the kit manufacturers, they're probably working 2 seasons ahead on design. It's incredible, sort of, so they would have already designed next season's kits and also probably working on the season after that now. But I see some of them. Some of them are terrible. But it is amazing, isn't it, how they're leaked? And I asked the question to Nike, one of their guys who I met on the tour, and I said, do you purposely leak these kits? And they said no. I thought they was trying to create the hype, the market, but they generally don't. And amazingly, there's some countries that have ended up selling actually the home kits before the official launch in the UK. Yeah.
But I had when I lived in Thai, I had a Spurs shop out there. When I used to get all my stuff from Tottenham, which the club would confirm. But obviously, I'm always aware of the shirts are made in Thai, and having worked in foreign rights business and things like that, I know full well that you license a company to produce 100,000 and they will always print more. So sometimes you'll see what are called copy shirts, but they're just overproduction, and they've worked their way through the back door of things. I know that because publishing was my thing, and we'd license book companies to run off a certain amount of copies, and I'd go around in Asia and find books that I know that we'd never licensed to be printed, and there they were in bookshops and things. So I know it goes on, and obviously living in Thai, I know exactly 1 or 2 of the factories where it comes out of. So it's not unusual. Not every fake shirt is a fake. It's a lot of them are exactly the same as the ones you can buy in the shop.
Overruns, yeah. It's a big bad world out there, Jace. Bad world. Yeah.
Counterfeiting is so good though nowadays, and when you're buying shirts, that the provenance is so important in a shirt. As I said, it's big business now, because some of these shirts are worth tens of thousands of pounds, and you have to sort of do your homework meticulously and check what you're buying's real, and absolutely.
Yeah.
Daren, we're coming to the end of the show. So all very well talking about a book, but everybody now wants to get their hands on the updated version. So where can people buy the book from, please?
You can buy the book from VSP Publishing's own website. It's an official club publication, so it will be in the Spurs retail at the stadium, and Amazon stock the book. So those are the main avenues.
Good stuff, and we'll tweet out details of it once the show goes out, and put some links up for people to be able to go to VSP and be able to get the book. It is stunning. It's so heavy. I absolutely love this. This is fantastic. There you go. Look, the Spurs shirt, super stuff, brilliant.
What shirt's that on the cover? Crackers, I'll give you a quick test. Go on, what shirt's that on the cover?
That's 81, the Coxball Teeth, isn't it?
Yeah. See, Crackers knows his stuff.
Yeah, in parts, nothing on you chaps, Daren and everybody that come together. I mean, it's just frightening knowledge that you have. It's it's brilliant. It's stunning.
Well, you've given me my homework now on a few questions, so I'll go off to Leo and get the answers, and they'll probably correct me on half the stuff I've said here today. But can you invite us back in about 5 years' time on the next edition? We'll probably be up to about 550 pages by then.
Oh man, can barely lift the book now.
Well, you'll need two of you to lift the book then. So yeah.
I was lucky when the original version came out, and we said we'd do the show. Vision Sport said, no, we'd sooner you come into the office. I think they obviously didn't want copies out too quickly or before anything. And I went to Vision Sports office and saw the quality, and you just thought, wow, this, everything they do is quality, Vision Sports, but the quality of that book is amazing. It really is.
Yeah, as I said, we didn't want to compromise on the quality for the authors here. For us, it's a legacy. It's nice to showcase our collection, but if you're going to do it, you may as well do it right. And we're quite proud of the book. Rightly so. Yeah, I think the first version was superb at the time, and this one, things now we use what's called invisible mannequins, where I don't know if you noticed, but the first book you can't see the labels at the back of the shirt. Now you can. So small, not small, but the sort of different, and the quality of photography gets better and better, of course. And yeah, so we're proud of what we've produced, and it stands as a good legacy, and we'll continue to do it.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Yeah. Now, not only can you buy the book, we're going to give you the chance to actually win a copy of the book. And Jace, this will cost Last Word on Spurs £8,000 just to post it. Just to post it.
I thought that was your fee.
That's second class, by the way. If you want to first class, more.
470,000 carrier pigeons just to lift it and drop it off to you. Amazon have delivery drones. We've actually got to use a Chinook to get this to you if you win it. So, Jace, can you set a competition question for people, please?
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier in the interview. So if you don't get it, rewind and listen. But who was the first player and number of the era of the Premier League when you had the players' names and numbers on the shirt? So whose shirt is featured in the book for that first one? And if you can submit your answers to lastwordonspurs@outlook.com. Don't answer on X or Twitter or whatever, but send an email in, and Ricky will learn something then, and then he'll draw one out from the hat, and the lucky winner, of course, will get a copy of this fantastic book.
Super stuff. Brilliant. Yes, no entering on X or Twitter for that one, please. So good luck. Last Word on Spurs, all one word, at outlook.com with your answer, and then we'll draw a lucky winner.
There we go.
Right, 138. Right, let's just add.
It's like Darren's coffee percolator's gone off.
Right, let me just time mark that. 138. That's it, and then we can come back in just to wrap up and for the edits. Right. Okay, we'll go with the with the end of it. Right. So there you go. Ladies, gents, boys and girls, fantastic stuff. Daren, Jason, Daren, firstly, yourself, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some insight into the updated book and what goes into making it and the hard work. It, as you say, a real labour of love and a real must for any Spurs fan. So listen, thank you for coming on. Can we find you on social media anywhere, or are you not a showboater like us stupid lot that's always over social media? You're out there.
I'm out there. So you can find me. So yeah, absolutely.
Expect a deluge of questions now, Daren. Daren, I've got this shirt. How much do you think this is worth, mate? I'd start charging a £5 for each valuation, and you'll be retired within 6 months. Let me tell you. So, Daren, brilliant stuff. Jace, brilliant as always. Well done, mate.
Just to say, I think there'll be a new Champions League shirt for next season. I'm seeing a lot of panic amongst the fan base at the moment. I've said it all season. It reminds me of Pochettino's first season, where we lost at home to West Brom and Stoke, and I think Tim Sherwood's Villa beat us. We had some really indifferent performances, up one week, down the next in that season. But look at what the Pochettino era. Yes, it didn't bring in a trophy, but it was still a pretty good era of watching. Arteta finished 8th, Pep finished 3rd, Klopp finished 6th. Just keep your heads. Don't knee-jerk to a game. Yes, we've lost at home to Wolves. We lost at home to Wolves 3 or 4 times before and got European football. I think the biggest year was under Conte, when we lost at home to Southampton and at home to Wolves in the same week, and we were told, that's it, there's no chance of Europe now. And, of course, we beat Arsenal at the end of the season and got Champions League football. So don't knee-jerk. Don't go over the top. Just understand that in the process we're in, I think he's trying to get Plan A to be played better than it currently is. And when he gets Plan A played properly, then he'll look at other bits and pieces then. But keep your heads, don't knee-jerk from one week to the next, and just wait till the end of the season before we evaluate. Don't panic and such at the moment. And I'm sure next season, particularly with 5 clubs, I'm sure we'll see that Champions League badge back on our sleeves next season.
Amen, brother. Brilliant stuff. Look, from myself, Richard Cracknell, Crackers, Jason McGovern, Daren Burney, thank you for tuning in, and get that book on the shelf. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Cheers, fellas.